that needs to go away. Otherwise, I cut it out later. But first of all,
Sure.
thank you very much for joining, everybody. I will share my screen. I have some slides, I have some demos, and I have some things that we can talk about. I like to keep the microphone open, but please mute if there's a lot of noise in your background. You're welcome to disturb or just jump in if there's any questions. Maybe many times questions are much better to actually handle up front rather than sit and wait with it until the last end Q&A sessions. I like when we have interaction. So it's really not a very strict formal way of doing things. I could also jump out of the presentation and do something else and show you something else, and then get back to the track again. But otherwise, let's start and kick off. So I'll share my screen here and go to presentation mode, so you have a little bit of an idea what we're doing. I need to move you over here and do this so we can start a little bit. So first of all, when we're sitting in these situations, a lot of people are saying safe house, and they probably some have heard about us. We are either famous or have a reputation. It's quite nice. We discuss a lot of things, and we love to discuss things because that's the only way we move, mindset from A to B. If I'm not being pushed by the industry or by people I know that are smarter than me or us, we love that. That this is not about a peeing contest. Our way of working or doing things is probably not the optimal way, but the thing is actually we have digested this stuff for many years. Have done the lab work. And you will see that we are a lot of us is very technical mindset, and we are operating with partners around the world that are having a technical mindset as well. Many of them maybe don't understand what we do in full detail, but the thing is actually we will help them. We'll try to get the messages across and the knowledge across, so they can actually start provide or convey the business value of these situations or solutions. So we also have a tagline called "No Compromises," and this is dealt or built in two ways. We are focusing on creating solutions that you cannot compromise. And then another way is actually the way we are producing our stuff is actually we don't compromise in creating them. So for instance, the way we have compiling, the way we do the coding, that's air-gapped in actually two steps. We have recreated our platform 3 times, because when you get to point number 67 and you realize point number 3 was actually the problem, that you could actually not get to point 68, then you can do two things. You can either say, okay, let's make a shortcut, and then you have a vulnerability. Then you maybe have a CVE. Or you can say, let's go back and start all over because we need to fix this point 3. And that's what we do here in Safehouse. We don't compromise on that. That's a built-in, a spine, the way we do our work. Security first, always, all time. So I also have a little bit of an agenda here. We have some pre-flight information. Then we have some in-flight catering. We will do a little bit of a cockpit tour. That means we'll show a demo and see what we do and why we do it and how we do it. And then I hope that we can somewhere find a soft landing. Some of you might not disagree on what we do and how we do things, and that's okay. But others, they might not maybe a little detail or this that. Then let's discuss it. That's why we're here. So a little bit about me. I took the liberty to ask ChatGPT about, who am I? And I've been in the industry since 83 and in security since 95. I have an expired CISSP and a CISM. I call it not applicable today because the thing is actually I don't believe that frameworks can actually solve security. They can help you manage it, but you cannot solve it. So we'll come to that later. I'm also a certified SOC architect. I've created quite a few of them around Europe, and for companies and organizations when I was working with IBM and working with Curator. But I also looked under the hood about, what is happening. Why did, for instance, Curator not detect NotPetya in 90 or 2016, 17 with Maersk, the Maersk case? And then we are sitting and changing the concepts, playing around with the modules. This is something that my good partner in Safe House, Jimmy, and I have done for many years. And now we are calling this Prevent First, and I'll give you a little bit of idea why. Jimmy and I also created a patent a long time ago in 2005 called Dynamic Datagram Switching User-Centric Security Architecture, with a lot of different things about identity-centric enforcement, trusted devices, and datagram switching, various elements and how you create a very, very secure environment and communication platform. We called that MCATS, Encrypted Multipurpose Content Application Distribution Service, many, many years ago. And I was very, very happy when John Kinderberg, he actually coined Zero Trust in 2010. Okay, 5 years later, then we kind of envisioned the same stuff. But he was actually calling it something that people could remember, and that's perfect. We don't have any problems in that at all. We don't believe that we are the brightest guys on the planet. We have no intention of being that, but we are having an open mindset. We want to take input because input is actually driving the output. So if we don't have an open mindset about tell me, teach me, let me understand why you think different, and then see if we can come to a conclusion about okay, let's do it this way instead, because that might be cool. Then Frederick, you can say hi and talk about a little bit about yourself, but you will get all the slides afterwards, of course. You're still mute. Are you there, Frederick? Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. So I'm Frederick Søndergaard Jensen, and among other things, I have a patent in risk and compliance pattern. And I will agree with Nils that a framework does not protect you, but it does help you organize your focus and so forth around risk and compliance in my case. Otherwise, the reason is I really come from a digitalization world, so been doing content and process, and then I realized that the solutions were not secure. So that led me into cybersecurity and saying, how do we do this in a manner that it protects the business and it protects the users, it protects the data. And that's where I came across SafePass, which I think is a fantastic fit for example, areas like Africa, because we can replace a whole bunch of technologies that the customer may have already and reduce the complexity of managing these environments. And I'll tell you that the IT hygiene in Africa is not good. I'm shocked that in Denmark, when I do the pen tests and so forth, it's not very good either. But if by simplifying things and we can accelerate the adoption of digital economies here, the better we can strengthen Africa for the future. That was all from my side.
Yeah, you will have to jump in a little bit later again. Anyway,
Sure.
Some of the things that we of course think about, that is how do we solve cybersecurity, and what do we mean by solve? So this is some of the questions I always push back to the guys when we are sitting, drinking a beer in the afternoon Friday, and they have a chat. We kind of, we've done that for many years, not drinking beers, but have the chat. But for many years, we have actually been sitting down and saying, what's this problem and why is that? And if we can't answer why, we will actually find some guys that can answer the why. I've been so fortunate. So I worked with Bruce Schneier, encryption guy in US, famous for a lot of reasons. But working with him for a couple of years, then then you really understand that there's a lot of questions that needs to be answered. And he was very good at answering them. So the thing is actually that the great inspiration, and all the credit to him to get the mindset, at least my mind's focused in another direction. So always keep can you say a constructive, very can you say, I kind of think about, why are people saying what they're saying? Why are they doing what they're doing? And understanding, the rationale behind it. But I'm a critical guy, but I'm also a constructive critical, if you know what I mean. So what do we mean by solved? Solved is actually that we believe that we actually need to solve cybersecurity because the state right now is actually a big problem. But we need to figure out how do we do that? What should we focus on with the next, let's say year or 2 years or 5 years to solve this stuff? And then we got a lot of other questions, a lot of other knowledge sharing involved, getting to where we are as a company, as a person. And that's what we love to do. So this is some of the why. This is actually a big problem for me, seeing those type of figures here. So back in 2001, one hourly cybercrime costs, mitigation, handling it, trying to what say have the products and the team and everything in place. That was around $2,000 per hour. These are US numbers only. I don't have them for Denmark. I don't have them for Germany or Spain or whatever, but they're pretty easy to get from FBI. It's public records. So that is actually interesting. But it's 20 years later, in 2021, the number was almost 790,000 US dollars. So that is 383 times more in 20 years. And we can't linearly prorate that out to 2041 because then you reach $301 million. Nobody can afford, cybersecurity at that time. There will be no companies. The good news is there will not be any hackers because there's no companies to hack. But of course we need to solve that. We cannot, have curves like this. We cannot have an exponential curve driving this cost. And at some point in time, businesses are prioritizing, and when they're prioritizing, they get rid of stuff. They get rid of consultants. They're getting rid of people, products, solutions. And the only winner here is actually the guys that are compromising us. We have to, approach this animal in a different way. One of the ways that we think is actually approach this, there's only a few blue slides here. These are coming from our presentations. That means the Safe House presentations. Or Safe House presentation. So this is not part of the process we're going through in this session, but you are getting a few blue slides here and there. So what we do is actually that the whole industry is working over here on the right side of the red box attack is launched. That's the zero-day model. When it's known, and this industry is based on known knowns. You don't have known unknowns or unknown knowns. You're trying to predict stuff with AI and a lot of other things, but it's still reactive. It's based on something we already know. And you cannot defend against that because people will also find things you don't know anything about, and then they exploit that. So whenever a zero-day is being made public, then the vendor, the public is aware, and they can build the signatures and patches, and those can be distributed. You can get all the thread feeds and everything. You can subscribe to that, and then you're welcome to find out when can you actually patch that or mitigate that flaw. The problem here is actually that there's a time window here where you are really exposed. And if you want to get rid of cybersecurity problems, you need to get rid of the exposure. And how do we do that? We need to go on the other side, of course. We need to control the environment. We need to make sure that you cannot launch a zero-day. You cannot get access to a vulnerability as even it's an unknown. You cannot get access to that, and you cannot exploit it, and that's why you cannot harm anything in the business. And that's actually what the whole idea about prevent first is all about, or prevent protect, as we also call it. We need to eliminate the pre-attack actions. We need to eliminate that any hacker trying to find for instance, Safe House, you're welcome to try to do that. We eat our own medicine, of course. And you're welcome to try to figure out what we're doing. And we don't have a firewall in front of Safe House. We don't need it, actually. Whenever you have a larger company, of course, we think there's other internet, can you say, assets and communications. You need to have a firewall to what I say, have some kind of a perimeter defense. But the whole idea is actually that if you need a perimeter defense, you're not secure. You're not building secure systems anymore. And that's why we think, okay, we need to build systems that don't need a firewall. We need to build systems that don't need to have add-on encryption or certificates or awareness training or all the other things that are following along on the right side of the model. That's very expensive. This one is actually on the other side. It's actually very inexpensive, and sometimes it's a flat cost curve. You actually cannot put in more security into a prevent first environment, but you cannot pull it out either. So that's some of the we think is the benefits. There's no impact in a prevent first environment. You can try to hammer on it as much as you want. We don't care. There's intelligence agencies around the world. The maximum time they spend on them is actually like 4 or 5 days. They're very persistent. Then most of the time we have the Danish police here trying. They went on for half an hour and they came back to us and say, well, we can see there's a lot of key exchanges going on. Well, they didn't know what was happening, so it doesn't matter. But the point is actually that they don't know how it's working. The whole idea with Prevent First is actually to take all the attack vectors and all the noise, all the false positives, all the things that are actually being bombarded into your organization, where you need to find the needle in the haystack. We need to make sure that the haystack is as small as possible. And you can do that with SafePass. You can get into a very small haystack, and now you can actually have the detect and response side being very efficient, very fast detecting the needle in the haystack, very fast responding to actually what is happening. And this is the way to actually move forward, in the security space. Whether you like it or not, you will be forced to do it. I'm sorry to say, and maybe we disagree on this stuff, but the thing is actually eliminating poor design will happen either by intentional decommissioning. That means you are changing something in your environment, or you will be doing it because you're getting destructed all the time. You're getting compromised. And when you're tired of getting compromised, you probably need to do something else. And another thing, I've been just discussing on LinkedIn, about the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. This trial is dead. Please, the thing is actually, again, you can argue with me all you want, and I'd love to take the discussion about why do we think it's dead, but I'm not the only one. So the point is actually we need to be moving into a modern world of how we are going to secure our systems and on our data and our users in a different way. The risk, the control impact, AI will not control impact. It will not limit the exposure because it's still based on known. It might be predicting something, but it's predicting out of something that it's already known in the industry. So the point I'm trying to make is actually that there will be never-ending vulnerabilities. There will be never-ending threats, and these will just hammer on you all the time. You need to find solutions where this is not exposing your business or an exposure to your business. Again, raise your hand if there's things we need to discuss here, then we'll do that. So we look at it 2 ways. We have the detect response. You don't get rid of that. You need to have detect and response, and I'll come back to that and how we do this. But in the detect and response world, you will be hammered with infinite alerts and logs. You will need to have log files. You need to have SIEMs. You need to monitoring systems and so on. You will have patch cycles. You need to be forced to do that. You need to respond to attacks. That is the CIA model. Something you maybe not have heard about, that is what we call the DIE model or DIE model. That is actually prevent first. It's a proactive model. It's distributed, it's immutable, it's ephemeral. And what do we mean by that? We will look at that in the next couple of slides. But one thing is for sure, that we cannot solve the problems in cybersecurity with the same thinking that created them. So, and you can quote me on this, in order to fix cybersecurity, we have to disrupt cybersecurity. And you might not like it because you're saying, hey, I'm living out of, selling products or solutions or services or whatever. But at some point of time, the businesses out there are fed up with what we are doing. So they want to change and do something else. And this is not something that is just going to be an explosion. It's going to be an evolution. It's going to be a transition. But that's where we are, maybe a little bit ahead of the curve in order to, the rest of the industry. But we have to do it, in my point of view. So, and the point here I'm trying to make is also, why are we trying to? Why are we? Let me just see if I can move this one. Doesn't work very well. Okay, why are we trying to continue providing or improving the telegraph when you actually can, just get into a modern telephone thing? So again, going back to DIE, the DIE triad and the CIA triad. The DIE is distributed immutable ephemeral. So let's take it one by one. No sender, no blast radius. It is distributed, and let me just kill that one and say goodbye. Then immutable, no changes, no tampering, easy recreation. And that means that whenever you don't care about your data being lost because nobody can convert it into something readable, then it's also easy to recreate. And then it's also easy to just pick it up again, set up the system, get going, and get access. Users get access to your systems. Ephemeral means like null state, no persistence, no foothold, ephemeral data. That means, well, in a safe pass prevent and protect environment, you can steal all the data you want. You can steal my credentials. You can steal my computer. The model is actually making sure that there's no problem in that. But again, that is also because that you need to change this. So we believe that you should have 80% focus on DIE in your business and only 20% on the CIA. That is a massive change. You need to go from detect response over to a prevent first or a DIE model. So you need to think about this in a different way. You need to think about security in a different way. So, this industry, transformation of this industry, cybersecurity is something else. It has happened, the 7 industrial revolutions. We don't want to get into that, but just simple way. Many years ago, ice were actually, carved out of lakes and things like that, or lakes. And they were distributed by horse. And then suddenly, an engine comes along and you have a car, and the horse transportation business went out of business. But the thing is, actually the car business took over. The same thing with the ice carving or charging whatever, delivering ice in ice houses, that was replaced with the refrigeration. So that is just an evolution, and we believe that cybersecurity is on that level right now. We need to change. We need to do something else. The good thing is actually that jobs don't disappear. Don't get afraid about, losing jobs and things like that. They will change. If you catch on this wave, you will also be part of, distributing it and making sure that it happens. So you will be the car business. You will be the refrigerator business. And that is actually a very important, statement here as well. It will not disappear. It will just change. Like all the other things that are happening around the world, mail service and the internet and, emails, and we can just continue mobile phone versus the fixed landline, etc., etc. So there's always changes, and they're always being, embraced by the users because it's easier, it's cheaper, it's faster, it's more convenient, and you can service people in a different way. Then we're back to safe house. So we're engineers, we are architects, we're also futurists. We're trying to look into the future. It's pretty hard, but we try to do that. And then why are we called safe house with a C? But that's of course based on zero trust. But otherwise, then a safe house is actually a secret place for hiding an operation. Here's an IT operation from hostile actors or actions. But that's part of it. So that's why we are called safe house. We are actually building safe houses for our customers. Then we also create what we call European Prevent First Alliance. That is not because I don't like US, but the thing is actually the US is just having a different mindset, not only on war with Ukraine and, they're governments and whatever, but also in surveillance. They love surveillance. They love to, get your data. They love to do a lot of stuff with it that you haven't approved, and we think that's wrong. Also here in Europe, and certainly we do. So we created the Prevent First EU manifest, and that is actually helping us a lot moving forward on a lot of these things. People can relate a lot to Prevent First. They're a little bit harder to relate to a product called SafePass Prevent and Protect. But when we're talking about SafePass Prevent and Protect, yeah, this is of course coming from me. We've spent a lot of time into creating it and reworking it. But I think we're the only one where a third party has spent 10 months looking into the source code, 10 months trying to set it up and try to break it in all different ways. They've been paid for it. Yes, we paid for it. But the thing is actually they have never seen anything that actually worked like SafePass. So they actually didn't want to. They want to say a high, resilience or security level, but they also want to say, well, with enough resources, you could actually compromise this stuff. And then the question was, of course, define resources. Yeah, but I don't know, a big computer, whatever, 2,000 computers in a cluster, all those type of things. But they couldn't answer. So the thing is actually, okay, let's take a session here, because if we take all the computer power on the planet and you pump it and say, please comprise SafePass, how long time would you think it would take? You have what we call ephemeral keys. That means they're only short-lived sessions. We constantly roll keys. We constantly do a lot of different things, and that means you have to start over, all over, and all over, and all over again. So even if you have like any type of super duper supercomputer, whatever, you would start all over whenever the next session is happening, and that's just a different model, a different way. So they actually accepted in the end that the system is not able to exploit or compromise in practice. But it took some time discussing with them, and they couldn't answer, on how we should actually, or how they would actually say it could be done. And when you can't do that, and you try, these guys are professors in encryption and mathematics and a lot of other things, and they couldn't do it. So to give you a little bit of an idea, how are we moving from 2005 up till 2021? There's been some phases in the industry that has actually played very, very nicely in our hands and favor. As I mentioned, when John Kinderberg, he actually coined the zero trust in 2010. This actually helped us to, great. This is actually a guy that understands how we do things and how it should be done. But it was a concept. It is a framework. He couldn't do the product. He don't think it's a product, and then that's okay. But we already knew that we have a product that could do this kind of stuff. Then in 2013, I'm also president of Cloud Security Alliance here in Denmark. But then they created something called software-defined parameter, and that played a little bit along down the process of what we're doing again. And then we were working. Jimmy and I was working in other organizations. Jimmy is also having a brewery, and he's making money on that. But the thing is actually, then we sat down in around 2018, 2019, and we said, now the world is really, excuse my expression here, it's really fucked up on security. Maybe we should take our old stuff and try to look into zero trust, look into the Mitra attack framework, look into the Cloud Security Alliance on software-defined parameter, why they think the way they think, look into deparameterization from a Jericho form back from 2004, look into SASE, Secure Access Services by Gartner, and so on, and try to mingle something together based on our own pattern and what we do, or what we did back then, and then recreate the platform. And that's what we did in 2021. And we really launched the first workable solution where we were confident that we couldn't get compromised. That was in 2024, and you saw that before November 24 we got the certification from this third-party university. So that was actually what we did. ZTNA or SafePass, people are saying, it looks like ZTNA. Well, yeah, sort of, and then not. Prevent First is a different animal. It's a security architecture. It's not an access model only. It is also an access model. But the thing is actually it removes attack surface, not in the way of removing, but it's just making sure that there is no attack surface. The way that you are exposed, you will not be exposed if you put your stuff into SafePass and ask users to actually access it. When you see the demo, you will not notice it. The user will not see it. It's all baked in. It's all part of the whole way of the platform, how it's working. And again, no IT guy will actually be able to say, I don't want this encryption model. They can ask us to say, yeah, we have a better encryption model. Can you fit that in? Sure, we can. But the one that is actually in, that is doing the job and a little bit more. So the point we're trying to make is actually there's no reason you can take the basic platform from SafePass, you can install it, and you will be very, very, very secure in that platform. And I know that there's people around that has been expressing or experiencing this, and maybe that's the keyword to Frederick. And I don't know if you want to jump in and have a little extra saying of what is happening in Africa on your side. Do you want to do that, Frederick?
Sure. So what I wanted to include on the Prevent First is all about preventing from disease to happen at all, like a vaccination. The analogy might be difficult, but it is simply to prevent, and then it is simplification of the environment that is being managed. And some of the software packages that are being rolled out are complex, and we see too many mistakes of very simple nature. For example, today we looked at one where PHP was an outdated version. Another one was doing user ID passwords in clear text, right? So with something like SafePass, put that on top, you protect the environment, you lock down who can actually log in and have access. The risk of exposure declines. It's hard to put a number, but remember, safety is also about building a wall that is so high that people will go to another house instead. So the fact that you're invisible is a security factor in this space. So that was my
that's good.
Contribution.
Well, and Frederick is right when we're talking about invisibility. That is actually a security feature. You won't see an American spy running around in Moscow with an American flag over his head and yelling and screaming he's a spy. That's not happening. If you want to have security, you are invisible. And that's the same here. So SafePass is an invisible platform. You cannot port scan it, you cannot network scan it, you cannot attack it, you cannot pump anything at it that it will answer for or on. It will not reply anything, and that means that you can try anything, and you're welcome to get our IP address, and you're welcome to just bombard it with anything you like. We don't care, actually. You're welcome to steal my computer. You're welcome to get my login and password. You will still not be able to use it for anything. And that's how it should be done. We think. But anyway, there's a lot of things out there, but that does the same thing. Then let's talk a little bit about, what are we talking about when we are talking to resellers and the partner ecosystem and a customer journey? Because this is also a very fun exercise, because we start normally in what I call uncontrolled discomfort. And what do I mean by that? That is, many customers, they're actually not very comfortable in the IT security business. They don't understand it. It's something they can't control. They're a little bit anxious. They are sometimes frightened. And then somebody's coming to them and say, yeah, well, you need to have a risk model, analyze that, and then we can talk a little bit about what the risks are and how we can actually do better. We can do awareness training, or we can help you understand how this world is, put together. And then you can, what we call it, you get into a controlled discomfort. Because it's really not helping you. You can still get compromised here. And then some people are saying, yeah, you need certifications. You need to have a, CISSP, and then you understand security. And then kind of I scratch my head and say, really? But the thing is actually that you can be taught the CIA model, and then I kind of scratch my head and say, really? But all these controls frameworks like NIST and the CIS-18 and all that kind of stuff, you can put that in. It's like the airline pilot being in that kind of same mode. That's a flight manual, so he will just check it. Do we have enough fuel to go from A to B? Yes. How many tons do we have of people and so on? How many people and blah blah blah. So you have a long list, but it doesn't prevent the plane from falling out of the sky or being terrorized in some way or form. So we're actually getting into a false comfort in that say. Then we can provide some information. Then we can actually say, have you thought about, or what about this, and what about that? Have you read that? Have you seen this? Have you tested that? Have you asked Microsoft 5 times why they're doing what they're doing, and they still get compromised? And maybe you should think about, what should I do if I don't want to get compromised? So that takes information. That takes actually you talk with people that have a different opinion and different idea about what is going on. And then you might get into some comfort and confidence that there might be something that we should need to look at. And then there's the wisdom. That is people that actually have the finger in the salad. That is actually people that has created products that understand how tech works, and they can come and say, listen, this is the way you can do it. Now you get into a protected capability. And I don't know where we are here, because sometimes I'm also in a discontrolled or uncontrolled discomfort. But the thing is actually that I also know from wisdom and from what we have been doing that our stuff works. So I can talk into that. Now we're getting into a little bit of the nitty-gritty, and there's only a few slides back, but this is actually talking into the NIST cybersecurity framework 2.0. I'm a NIST guy. I've been there all my life. But the thing is actually that I like these frameworks in some way or form. Even though they can't, build security, they can actually help me control it in some way or form. But you can say these small errors, I don't want to get into all that. We can do that another day. But just take one thing as a response. This industry is now not about identifying assets anymore. It is, but we should have been past that. It's not about protecting EDR, EPs, and endpoints and so on. We should have been past that. It's not about detecting the logs, correlating that, the flows, the user entity and behavior analytics, hybrid cloud problems and issues like that. It's pretty hard, by the way, to get logs out of a cloud. So you probably have a dark gray area there. But now we're in the response phase. We assume compromise. Everybody is having your data. They just look at dark web. There's billions of records floating around there. But the thing is actually that that's where the CIA model doesn't work anymore. You can't restore availability. You can't restore integrity, and you can't restore confidentiality. So we need to look into another model. But it's still the NIST and the CIS and the ISOs and ISOs, that's kind of that over there. So you have the detect and response, and this is what I think detect and response should actually concentrate about. That is actually the hardware side of things. That is the infrastructure. Make sure the infrastructure is working. If the server is not operating, then SafePass is not operating. And now we're looking into SafePass and say, okay, now we need to do some data protection here. So in SP 800-207, which is the Zero Trust NIST framework, NIST Zero Trust, then it actually divided up into the infrastructure, or what they call control plane, and the data plane. And let's fill out the data plane with SafePass stuff, because this is where we handle the users, the access, the data itself, who actually has access to it, when, how, for how long time, and so on. And there's some reasoning on the governance and the regulation side that we can put in as security policies. But this is actually not enough to actually get things going. Let me just move you over here, because once we are in this model here, we need to we just jump over that. We need to go in and understand what do we have. So we have something that is an attack surface management platform. We're using an external party, but you can use anybody that's actually capable of doing it. But we have our own scanner that we install in customer sites, and then it's just picking up information. And 1 hour, 5 hours, 2 weeks later, we have everything that is going on that we need. And then we can start building the resources into the SafePass environment, and make sure that the data plane or the infrastructure plane is actually separated and it's not conflicting with each other and so on. And then when you can rescan after you put stuff into SafePass, you can document that now you have a protect service, you have systems inside SafePass that is not exposed anymore, and then you can put that into the compliance and the auditors and approve and prove that, and continues that model to just scan, put in, scan again, document, and then you have a better and better risk management strategy, better security policies, and all that kind of stuff happening over here. We also have something called we prevent first SOC that drives automation. Managed SOC services out there, they're pretty okay. They're based on either Logpoint or Splunk or IBM's Curator, but there's a lot of solutions out there, Sophos, whatever, that can operate these things and correlate logs and get that information. And SafePass is also providing logs into that environment. But the point I'm trying to make is actually that when you're building this model, when you're setting it up this way, where you have the governance structure down here, you can see that governance is customers, MSPs, using SOCs or whatever. You have the blue safe scanner, total inventory, you understand that. You have the green detect response, and you have the SafePass prevent and protect. Then you're actually getting into something very interesting, and that looks like this. If I could punch the right keys. This is a real life example of a client and customer in Peru that is an energy company. And we created that with After and the Safe Scanner, and we got all the information into SafePass. And then we tried to, with some managed services, set that up as well. But these numbers, they are incredible. 180 times faster mean time to detect, 20 times faster mean time to resolve, 60 to 80% less or fewer false positives, 50% cheaper actually operating cost, 90% less CM ingestion, 95% reduction in the attack surface. So we can't emphasize enough this is actually working. Okay, that's it. Any questions here? I don't want to get into the last bits and pieces, so let's just jump out and stop. Not stop sharing, but stop at least asking if there's any kind of information, because then we go into the demonstration.
Yeah, we do have a specific question regarding IoT, the IEC 62443 standard.
Yeah. Okay, but that's on the OT side. The thing is actually that, well, let's just take this diagram then, and let's just look at that. Because I can also go down to maybe looking at a real OT environment. You will get all the slides. So here you can actually see a kind of a Purdue model where we have all the levels in the OT side. You can place the SafePass proxy in front of the OT environment, and then you can determine who has access to these HMIs or PLCs or whatever. So this is just a resource in SafePass. I will show you that when we're doing the demo. And then you control who has access, both internally and externally. So we can actually have a Siemens guy going through a device like this one. It's an IPC 127. It's a little industrial computer. We put the SafePass proxy on this stuff, and then the Siemens guy can go log in, and he will only have access to, I don't know, a Siemens valve or monitor or PLC or whatever that is behind this panel. But this is a little water distribution company in Jutland that is having a little demo or set up like this. But the point I'm trying to make is actually that it's very easy to differentiate or isolate these things because you will control the access to the environment. We don't want to get into like Profinet is the protocol. It's very time sensitive and so on. So getting down on the sensor level, that is not the idea here, because there's other people that are much better doing that. But we can make sure that the right person is actually having access to the right resource at the right time from the right device, at the right location and everything like that. I'll show you that in a second. Is that question enough, Frederick, for now?
Yes, I think for now that's good.
Then let's see what is. I was not Frederick. Sorry.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a quick question about DDoS attacks. How robust SafePass is?
Well, SafePass will not puke or anything. You can load the, our IP address. You can just bombard it with all you want. That's fine. It will not do anything except that we have a little bit less bandwidth to operate on. But the thing is actually, if you have 2 gateways or 3 gateways or 4 gateways, then we'll just load balancing and move you over to another gateway. So, they can hammer on one gateway and then you just log on to another gateway. And we don't see any, hiccups in these kind of setups. ShapePass is actually built in with full load balancing, load sharing, and redundancy. So that's part of the, out of the box functionality when you set up one gateway. So let's log into and see, what it actually is. So we have 2 files here. So we have the connectivity file, extended connectivity. It's just a generic file. You can distribute that all over the planet. And then you have the what we call the XSID, site identity file. This is unique for our environment. So that file is actually making sure that this is a DNA. So like child-parent relationship, the clients that are having this DNA can log on to this environment and nothing else. Then you can see here, I can actually not press any resources right now. So there's no resources available. So I can log in and I don't need complex or long complex passwords. You can have mine. It's NEA. My password is safehouse123 and you can get it. You will not be able to use it for anything. So what? Yep.
So the XID, it's like SSH key pair. You have private key, public key.
Yeah, it's just you're right and you're wrong. The thing is actually we are not coming to that yet. So the key exchange is happening in a moment. But what we are doing here is actually that we are having a site identity that the installation, when you install SafePass, it will create or it will extract some information from the environment and build a signature file called the XSID file.
Right.
And what is happening here is actually when this is a generic file, it looks, when the first time this starts up, it actually opens up and it extracts some of that encrypted information and it pumps it into the binary here and close everything down again. And if you try to tamper with the exit file right now, you try to reverse engineer or decompile it, that file will be deleted. So you will just be back to square one. And this one, yeah, go ahead. Please try to compromise that. This university, they tried for 10 months to actually compromise it and see if they could get access without, sneaking around. They couldn't and they can't. So there's a lot of things happening on the right side. This is only in demo mode, but you will see what's happening. I will try to see if I can explain the way it's moving. So right now it's building the environment fingerprint. That is my device and the environment from the server. So it's compiling the device fingerprint, it's connecting to the server, it's connecting, establishing a secure channel. Here's the key exchange going back and forth, the SSH keys, validating device, and blah, 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 authenticating users and creating a shared directory over here, a folder that is encrypted, only can be seen by SafePass. And now I have access to resources. And I didn't have that before. So these are my resources. I have 3 groups in one gateway. So one gateway, 3 groups. On the resources, I have some resources here I can just go in and play with. I'll wait a little bit with that because let's go into the administration side. We have changed. You can of course directly get into the administration side, but to give you an idea of loading something in a different way, then we're going over a terminal service or remote desktop connection, just to show that that can also be done. But otherwise, you can just jump in directly. Hope it works. Hope the server's alive. There's a little bit extra checking whenever we have access to the backend side. So save pass 3.1 / near. I need to make sure I punch it correctly. And then Sorry.
Have you activated the spell checker on your password?
I don't know. Maybe. So here we are at the backend system. It's not very sophisticated, and that's actually done by purpose. We actually asked some guys if we should change to a very glossy, nice, GUI and so on. They said no, because it's very easy. You sit in somewhere in the platform, and you just right click and you just do what you need to do, and then it just opens up and do the things. It's very efficient, very fast, and the technicians they like that. I don't know. I know, Jakob, you have been working a little bit with this stuff. Is that something is that good or bad in your mind?
No, I agree. For real security and real use case, we don't need nice and glossy. We need fast and efficient. So
yeah, absolutely correct. So we have some site settings. Let's go through that first. So we have the site identity file. You saw that's SafePass 3.1, but otherwise you can call it anything. You can create a banner and so on, but that's part of the GUI. The GUI can be changed to anything, or what the user sees can be changed to anything. You don't have to, build on what we do. You can create your own. Here you have one of the very important things. That is actually, if I toggle this on, all devices that are logging into my IP address will be approved automatically. We in SafePass or SafeHouse, we of course toggle this off. And that's why I say you can hammer on our gateway as much as you want. You will not be allowed in because you're not coming from approved hardware. And I'll show you where you do that and how you do that. You can restrict connections. You can do pre-user rule sets. You can set up various different things to log the server as well, and whatever you like to do. Authentication-wise, you have various OTP or MFA options, and you can penalize the users all you want. Every time they punch enter, then you need to request, or you need to go on your mobile and punch in the 10,000 different numbers. Anyway, that's up to you how you want to control that. The system is just having it out of the box. Policies, long complex password. Do we need it? No, not at all. But we hate when we are scoring minus in various NIST frameworks and say, do you have a long complex password? And we say, no, we don't need it. And they say, well, this is a requirement, so you need to have it. Okay, then here you are. Go ahead, make my day. Take whatever you want. And if you want to use it, use it. If you don't want to use it, you don't need it. Role users, that's just the admin side of things. You can also get alerted, of course, by email, various criticalities whenever things are happening. Then you can get alerted and woken up in the morning or whatever. We have secure device. We have two types of things. We have what we call VFS, virtual file system, and we have UFS, universal file system. The difference is that this one is a local device, local, can you say, folder on my computer, where I can actually determine if I allow all SafePass users to have access to that area, that storage area. Allow users only, that's only me. I can allow various applications, or I can drive that down, and I can allow that it's always allows file manager. If that's toggled off, then the file manager won't even know it's there. So I cannot move information in and out. So that's one thing that is pretty unique. Then we have the UFS side. We don't want to create a lot of things here. I want to show you a little bit. There's the services are running. There's a little very nice little information about what is going on. So let's go into some more settings that are interesting. UFS mappings. That is something that some people are finding interesting. Let's call this NEA, and we can adapt it to me, and then we can say file systems, S3 bucket. So now you can see you can create an S3 bucket out in the real world where the user don't know it's an S3 bucket. They don't know where it resides. They don't know where it is, if it's in Amazon or if it's in IBM or any other cloud provider out there that is providing S3 buckets. And why should they know? It's up to the IT guys to say, hey, we got a very, very cheap, nice space here that we can control. And we just store all the encrypted information via SafePass to this S3 bucket. This is extremely easy to actually manage rather than having VPNs and a lot of other things. So we created that, of course, and make sure that it's very easy to operate. More settings, manage device and mapping. So you can say here that here I can actually see what devices that have access to the environment. When I'm going down to device adoption queue, all new devices will be listed here, and I need to right click and approve them. And that's why I don't do that when people are, of course, not somebody I know and have asked to log in. One other thing that is very important here, that is, we probably have the most advanced rule editor in the world. And I'll show you a little bit about what this is only half of it, because there's also a lot of rule sets around the menu items, and we'll come to that. So here I can actually take myself, for instance, and I can say function, that's an access rule, what I need, allow access or deny access, any user group if there were any. Fine, I need to have my device ID, didn't contain my device ID, and it's already finding my device ID, and here you are. So I've created a rule right now where I have an access rule. It's depending on my device ID. So if I don't have that device ID, I will not get this access. And then I can actually put in some time and say, okay, from let's do like, I don't know, 9 o'clock in the morning till, sorry, 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, and then say code, and then do like till, let's say, 22 in the evening. And then only on Mondays you can toggle this off, and then that rule is active on Mondays between this time frame. And what is happening is actually that I will get access to my resources. When I have these, I don't know, 8, 9 resources here, I will probably get a 10th that is based on this access rule, where this menu item that are given this rule set is popping up in my launchpad or be taken away. So that means that you will not have access to that if you're not setting it up correctly, of course. Anyway, that's the rule side. Then won't get into so much about that. Active Directory sync, Entra ID, and so on. You can just synchronize over users and so on. We do that and ask you to actually, people that are having that is maintaining all the users from the AD side and all the groups and all the security policies, whatever, that will just be moved over into SafePass. And then you can actually shut down your AD if you like, because the users will not notice that anymore. They're accessing via SafePass. You have a few other things, what synchronization wise, you have logs. Let me show you the access log. This is some of the information that we're picking up on the device that are logging in. So the device fingerprint, that is the unique key that SafePass is creating for my device. The machine name, the OS, domain name, version, build, grid, public private IP, machine MAC addresses, machine serials, OS product keys, and patch levels, and so on. So you can also have, yeah, go on.
So I just want to highlight the point that a lot of the, at least in Africa, a lot of the breaches that happen is due to employees that are colluding, right? And with using this technology, it's completely clear if somebody has colluded with anyone, you know that their hardware was involved, their software, et cetera, et cetera. So it will close a big vulnerability for organizations.
Sure. There's also one other thing that I want to show you, that is actually that when you have, like, for instance, you can create the same document or the same resource with various options. So we have 2 Office Calc here, Open Office Calc, and this is one, you need to document the access here. So what is that meaning? That is meaning that if I punch in and say, this is only for demonstration. Maybe I spelled correctly, maybe not, I don't care. So the thing is actually that now it's starting Open Office after I actually punched in that I should have access to this information. That could be medical records in a hospital, or whatever, like a printer or whatever. And then it will just launch the program or the asset or the information that you're requesting or setting it up. Let's close this back again, because getting the access documentation, you will just see that is coming in here. So this is only for demonstration. So you have a list of all the things that is required when you're logging in. And why do we do it that way? Because many times people saying, I accessed this medical record by mistake. I didn't actually want to talk about, Bruce Willis, I don't know, his disease or whatever. I didn't want to sneak in and look at his patient journal. So when you're doing it this way, you are required to put in something on the keyboard, and that means now you're doing deliberately, and that's a completely different story. So also when you request access to printers with ticket systems or whatever, you can punch in those, and you have a record of the access and the ticket entry and so on. Anyway, so logs are having different things. We have session logs, live logs, and so on. And then, of course, about that is a little bit about the licensing and about updates. So you can always follow, the modules that you have in if they need to be updated. And here you have an update, and you can just download the latest versions, and you get that automatically. You can look at it, say, do I want to deploy it or not? Yes, you want. Or okay, then you do it. It's all free of charge. But let's look at what is happening in the backend side. So we have the gateway, and now we have the users, and you can see the groups that I'm having over here. So gateway, the groups on the road working from home, and SafePass admin. So I have them here on the road, work from home, and SafePass admin. So the SafePass test and the consultants up here, I don't have access to that in this environment. I'm sitting, of course, on the admin side, so I can, of course, just play around with it here and make sure who has access and control that. But normally, you will not be able to see it, only from the admin side. So from the user perspective, what they have access to is actually on the road resources and work from home and SafePass admin, and you can see that meets nicely with what we have here on the road and work from home. These two resources, they're the one here. And the SafePass admin is just down here. So if I want to create a new menu item just with another, I can just copy a menu item. I can call it something else and say this is so 1, 2, 3 office instead. I don't know if there's anything like that. And then just create. It's coming from the same it's coming from the same IP address and so on. So it's the same office, Open Office Calc that I always open. But now I can actually create various other things that I want to do here. And I can actually hook that up to a different, let's say, work from home. I need to punch it on the right thing, of course. So yeah, so now I have 1, 2, 3 from home, and then I can go out and of course just refresh the menu, and I get access to work from home. This will automatically happening when you're moving around in the network. Then the menu structure is always updated. So now you will see that working from home is having Office 1, 2, 3. Let's remove that again because otherwise we're getting completely messed up here. But you're setting up a menu item very easily. You define the IP address, you define the target ports, you have the local host, the binding address. You have some parameters on where this is operating, how it should operate. You create scripts or you RDP scripts or whatever, how this should be deployed. You can deploy native applications, you can deploy terminal services, you can deploy remote desktop, you can deploy Citrix applications, you can deploy anything you like. We don't limit or we don't change that. We don't taste the data. We don't touch the data. We just grab it, encrypt it, and move it to the person and deliver it in the package that they want to see it in. And then you have a lot of parameters here that you can actually play around with. And if the executable, let's say Word doesn't exist on my computer, I can pull it from a repository from the backend, install it in memory, and then launch all the information, the documents. And when I'm done, I can just click here and say delete all downloadable applications upon exit, and then it will remove everything again. No trace, nothing left on the computer. So you can walk into a library computer in Beijing and you can use that for your office work. And when you're leaving, be my guest, dear Chinese government. There will be no traces for you to look into. Otherwise, they can look in the memory block, and the memory block is being just overridden with white noise when we are leaving. So that's what we call obfuscation and a lot of other things. That's really what I want to show you. So let me just jump out of this stuff. It's actually very easy. It's not very complicated. Don't think I don't want to share stuff now, but you can actually just ask questions if you like. Good or bad? Any comments?
Yes. Actually, I'm trying to understand what is the product and beginning to get an understanding. But what about, so let's say you were working on some Windows Server workstation. And what about the native protocols like the NetBIOS or SMB? And so there's all kind of stuff that Windows enables and are dependent on.
We don't change that.
Do you just close down everything in the built-in firewall and then only allow access through the SafePass application? Or
Yes, you can say that. There's plenty of ways you can do that. But the thing is, actually, we don't change the protocols. We don't do anything. We just handle them, move them, and grab them. So we are protocol agnostic. The point is actually that everything be moved to port 22, the SSH2 protocol. And we just wrap that around anything and then just transport it over the SSH2 or the port 22. So in fact, the only thing you need to have open in a firewall, if you have a firewall, that's port 22. And then SafePass will grab everything you have. You can't see on port 22 if it's Mission Impossible streaming from Netflix or it's a Danish radio or whatever.
yeah, right. Okay, so you are tunneling between the endpoints that's allowed, and that means that it's not open from outside on any normal ports, like whatever services you have in Windows. Or let's say you have a web server, well, then the 443 port is, well, it has to be open at least on the gateway.
No. You can, as we have here, we have Firefox remote app or Edge by proxy. So you can just say, okay, let's launch Edge by proxy. And no, now this is good news. That we just need to have that resource, and now it would just launch whatever you like to launch. And if you have an application that is an HTTP or web-based, then it will just grab that and running in the SOX proxy.
Yeah, okay, and
Niels,
this is intended for the end user and not for the server. So what about servers? Let's say you have a SharePoint service that the end users, they have to reach or something like that, a web server of some sort.
You do it exactly the same way. You just hook up where's that SharePoint server is residing, and what port is the SharePoint server operating on, and then we just grab that. We don't.
And do you protect the server as well?
I think the question here is that if you access a resource within the internal network, that somehow allows you to jump from that resource. So if you get a full screen on remote desktop server, then you're inside, and now, of course, you're not guarded by SafePass from that server within the internal network, right? So I think that was the question. So if I'm a server operator and I'm actually on the server, but getting to the server will be through SafePass. And unless you microsegment that server into a safe zone and do firewall ruling to all the other stuff that is in that internal network, then of course, when you're on a local resource within the network, if you can do stuff, you can still do stuff, because as you say, Niels, you don't change anything.
Does that make sense, Sam?
Yeah, I guess.
This makes you want to consider all resources that you grant access to, and then put them in the correct level of microsegmented network. Also, depending on if it's an internal server operator, then there's no issue because he's allowed that access. But if it's an external vendor, then you might put that server in a DMZ zone, and now he can access that server, but that server can't access any other resources unless on ports that are given through firewall ruling. So it's really about building the architecture and handling the situations correctly.
Yeah.
And then
but is it intended for the user workspace only, or is it also intended for like internal servers?
We don't change or differentiate between internal and external. So if you want to, of course, have a technician to, as one of the partners is actually doing, giving access to all their customers from the outside in through the SSH to their hosted environment, then you can do it that way. And internally, it's exactly the same thing. When their technicians are accessing the customer resources, they use SafePass to actually access their environments. But so it depends on the use case.
I think I could illustrate with the use case scenario. So I have an internal tech, and he's allowed to handle Active Directory, but he's not a server operator, so he shouldn't be allowed on the desktop. He shouldn't be able to run NetScans or Wireshark or anything else. So I'll just create a menu point called Active Directory and make him start the Active Directory as an embedded piece of software through SafePass. So now he can only operate within that sphere that we have granted him access to. He cannot, move beyond that sphere. Whereas right next to him, you have the server operator sitting. So he's not allowed in Active Directory. You can handle that through access permissions in AD, right? But he can log onto that server as a local admin, and he can do stuff and interact with the desktop. So you have these different usability features, and some you can lock down through the SafePass software, others you have to guard with the firewalling or microsegmenting.
Sure.
But it's all doable. It's just a matter of planning and architecture.
Great. And then, Søren, maybe to give you a little bit of illustration here, you have the launch pad over here. So here's the user's workspace, if you like. They have individual tunnels or pipes, if you like. These are end-to-end encrypted. When it's getting into the proxy, the SSH2 proxy, then you can either have it in the DMZ or DMZ, and then everything that is coming out of the proxy you can see on the network. That is just regular, normal network traffic. But if you take the proxy and put it into a server and into a closet, then everything that is coming out of that closet is actually encrypted also over the network, and you will not be able to detect what that is. We have a few customers in the energy sector that is actually operating this way because they don't want anybody to actually look into on the network internally. Only allow people that are having access to a specific server, as Jakob is pointing out, then they have access, but it's a controlled access. It's also locked and all those other things that needs to be part of it. But nobody else can actually log into that closet. So it depends on the use case. We had a company in Peru also. I don't know why Peru is actually very hooked on what we do, but they had an issue with an old 2003 server. They tried to install antivirus and a lot of other things on it. Nothing worked. They called us up and say, "How do you do that?" Well, you just place a proxy. Took them 2 hours, and then they got the proxy up and running, and now nobody can access the 2003 server running a payment system for the municipality and municipalities. And it's 300 people have access now through the gateway to the systems, but they're not compromised from the outside anymore. It has to be one of the 300 people that is compromising themselves. All users can compromise themselves, of course, with what they have access to, but none of them have admin rights and things like that. We don't have any privileges here. You cannot escalate privileges. You're given a right, and if you want to have some other right, then you need to call the admin guys and say, "Listen, can you make sure I'm getting access to this or that?" And it has to be configured, and then you will just be deployed, and you get access to it via the group structure. You just port it over very fast, and then it's operational. So this is a controlled environment, and that's why we're thinking security in a different way. Again, you are welcome to set it up. You're welcome to try to breach it. You're welcome to try to see how it works and how easy it is to connect to various resources and systems, and then operate it with it. Is SafePass for anything? No. There's also use cases we are saying, well, this is not what SafePass is intended to do. There's other solutions that are much better than this, but I think we can certainly go in through a lot of different use cases. Jakob?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight an extra feature because the two use cases we've been talking about here is user centric. So they're, it's all user centric, but the use cases we just talked about was users logging into something. What we should remember here is this is also a client portable tool. So if I have some piece of software that communicates with my server on a given port, I can actually have that software reside on the endpoint and talk through the SafePass client. So now they don't have any access to the server as such. They only have the access that the application needs to the server. So in that way, for instance, the 2003 server, you could totally make sure people don't touch it at all by just having the endpoints, the client software distributed through SafePass and run communicating to the server software. So now nobody needs to access any servers through RDP or anything like that. You just have an application that runs 100% securely, and where only users who have the right to run it from the given time span, the given environment, the given hardware will actually be able to run that piece of software.
Yeah.
Just making a point.
Good point.
Point.
Perfect. Any other?
So Niels, Niels, I just wanted to highlight something that I didn't cover earlier, which is this gives the end user or the customers a great level of autonomy as to where they want their data residing. They run the platform themselves, or they choose a cloud provider to run it, but you're not tied to having to run it on US data centers, et cetera, et cetera. You run it on the environment you want, and that applies for the data as well, and so forth. So data sovereignty is definitely something that is achievable here with this solution. So these are some other aspects I wanted to highlight.
Exactly, and there's Son, come on.
I didn't say anything.
Okay, your microphone just light up. Anyway, another thing is also to add a little bit on what Frederick is saying. SafePass is a non-intrusive, non-invasive, non-interruptive platform. That means you can install it with all the stuff you're having. We are not touching any of it. You don't have to reconfigure firewalls except port 22, but you don't have to reconfigure anything in your current setup in order to make SafePass work. You can install it, you can set it up, you can run it, you can have users to access resources, whatever, in totally parallel of what you're having today. And then you can either keep it and then exchange, transform, or you can say, this is not for me. Just let the license operate for 30 days and then it will just stop automatically working. So it's completely easy to set up and work with. Yeah, well, you need to have a little bit of you need to read the manual and install guide. And we will help you, and we're partners that can help you setting that up. But in the end, we are a partner-driven company. We sell indirectly. We are as a vendor, but we are talking to a lot of end users in the defense industry, government, financial services, insurance, transportation, and so on. All the critical industries, sectors, energy, and so on is also part of it. Hospitals, government, municipalities. And they more and more begin to, embrace what we're doing and how we're doing things. So it's going to be exciting the next couple of years. So thank you very much. I don't want to steal more time here. We're close to the end, but opening up for a soft landing. Any comments? Good, bad? Changes, something you think we could do better?
No, there was goodness.
Yeah, otherwise then get hold of me afterwards. Then we of course we're always open. We love input. The best thing we can do is to get input and say, what are you thinking? This is stupid. This is crazy. You do this instead, and we will evaluate it. A lot of the features and functions that are coming out is actually based on input. If we could have this or do this, this would be great. And if we can, we put it in. It's free of charge. We don't charge for anything regarding that. It's just a part of the update, and you will get these features. And if you can use them, use them. If you can't, no problem. So cool. That's all I want to show. And any last remarks? Then otherwise, let's move on.
Thank you, Niels.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Speak to you later. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.